Good afternoon all, and thank you for the opportunity. As introduced, my name is Danielle Seymour. I am a curation specialist for SAON, which is the South African Environmental Observation Network, and my colleague Mark is the Systems Development Lead. We are from the Ulwazi node of SAON, and we will just be talking a bit about the inner workings of the SAON ODP, or the SAON Open Data Platform. So just a background of who we are and what we do. SAON is a research facility of the NRF of South Africa, the National Research Foundation, and we are mandated by the Department of Science and Innovation, or now DSDI, to preserve and provide access to earth and environmental observation data for South Africa. Our vision is world-class environmental research platforms for a sustainable society, and we are a dedicated institution for enabling long-term in-situ global change research. Our focus areas are mostly or largely around environmental observation and also largely data management, and then also a lot of science engagement and educational outreach. In terms of our organizational structure, we've got one national facility, one national office that is based in Pretoria, and then we've got 7 additional nodes that is distributed across the country. The one is Aridlands node, we've got Fynbos node, we've got the Grasslands, Forestry and Wetlands node, and the Hundlovu Savannah node. Those are our terrestrial-based nodes, and then we've got 2 offshore nodes, the Egagasini offshore node and also the Elwandle coastal node that is based here in PE. And then there's us, the data node, which is the Ulwazi data node. This just shows the areas of operation of SAON and all its research infrastructures. So we've got 3 additional research infrastructures, namely FDION, SMACRI, and SAPRI. So FDION is the Expanded Freshwater Terrestrial Environmental Observation Network. SMACRI is the Shallow Marine and Coastal Research Infrastructure, and SAPRI is the South African Polar Research Infrastructure. And like I mentioned previously, for the terrestrial nodes, a lot of the instrumentation and the workings go across the different biomes across South Africa. And then for our offshore, we cover large parts of the oceanographic areas around Southern Africa, including Prince Edward Islands and Antarctica. Within the Ulwazi node, or for SAON, we've got 4 dedicated technical teams. The first one is the infrastructure management team, and they are specifically focused on managing the platforms for SAON, all the infrastructure platforms and our ICT systems. Then there's data curation, which I form a part of, and we are responsible for the preservation and the standardized dissemination of all SAON data sets, along with our partners that we collaborate with. We also advise on data governance processes and also the sustainability metrics for all of SAON's data infrastructure. Then we've got a systems development team that's responsible for the development of data and metadata management services in support of our data curation and publication for SAON and its partners. Then lastly, we've got a data science team that is responsible for conceptualizing, designing, and developing new approaches to decision and policy support, and generally just new data products. So I will be speaking about the inner workings of data curation in the ODP. So just an overview of what the Open Data Portal is. It was established to support data management and the development of information platforms and decision support tools for government. The ODP directly allows us free access to and visualization of spatial and non-spatial data and information covering a variety of themes within the environmental sector. And then just for those who may not be aware of what data curation specifically is in this context, it's the process of managing and maintaining data sets to ensure that they are accurate, complete, and accessible over time. It plays a critical role in organizing, validating, and preserving data to support scientific research and also decision making. And then within the SAON ODP, the data curation process ensures that all the environmental data is properly managed, stored, and made available to all users globally. Effective data curation is very important in ensuring that the data is available or the data that is available is of high quality and very reliable. which provides a trustworthy foundation for research and analysis. And this particularly speaks to how our curation processes supports achieving the Core Trust Seal certification, which the ODP has as of 2023. And that certification essentially assures stakeholders that the data is trustworthy, well managed, and it meets recognized standards for credibility and reliability. So just an overview of the data curation workflow. So with our data submissions, data is submitted by external and internal data providers. So we work with SAON colleagues and also external government departments and other partners. So they will submit their data to us. Once we've received the data, we then do validation tests where we check the accuracy and completeness of data and metadata. We also look at the integrity and just to make sure that the data meets the required data standards of SAON for further processing. Then we also go into cleaning and doing quality checks, so we check for errors and inconsistencies, and we generally follow the tidy principle, so that is ensuring that the data follows a structured format that allows data to be usable and interoperable with different systems. We also issue DOIs, which are digital object identifiers, and this is quite important in discoverability of data and for the data to be persistently discoverable across systems. And the outcome of this data curation workflow is a collection of high-quality data sets that are ready for global dissemination that can be used confidently by researchers and policy and decision makers. Our data curation processes are also guided by the FAIR principles, that is to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. In terms of findable, the data sets are organized and tagged with appropriate keywords that makes it easily findable and discoverable in different search facets and databases. In terms of accessibility, our data is made available through open access policies and mechanisms, so users are able to access data without any constraints. In terms of interoperability, the data sets are structured using standardized formats so that it's usable in different systems. And then in terms of it being reusable, we use clear licensing and detailed metadata to ensure that the data is able to be used and found in different systems as well. So what this all means in terms of the role of metadata in the Open Data Platform portal, metadata serves as the contextual information that accompanies all the data sets that are cataloged in our portal, which mainly describes the key attributes like the data set's origin, the content, the format, and quality, which also allows users to understand the data context and its relevance. The standards that we use, we follow established metadata standards such as ISO 19115 or locally adapted to the SANS 1878. And this ensures uniformity and it also enhances the ability to share the data across different systems. And more recently, we have developed a biological schema, and for this we use the ecological metadata language. So in terms of how our metadata enhances usability and discoverability, our metadata is well tagged, and this ensures that data sets are indexed well so that they are easily searchable. It also makes the data sets understandable for various stakeholders, from researchers to policymakers. And then another value-added product, I could say, that the curation process adds is we add a lot of contextual information. So we ensure that metadata is sufficient and that it explains the data sets in detail. So say, for example, there are these very technical instruments out at sea that researchers are collecting ocean tides and currents and things on. We will ensure that the metadata describes that data well enough so that it's useful for public consumption, because obviously not everyone understands the technical aspects of scientific data. And then lastly, in terms of interoperability and integration, we ensure that our data can be seamlessly shared and used across different platforms, which expands its reach and the use of the data. And this essentially allows the data from our ODP to be integrated with other data sets globally, which supports a wide range of scientific and environmental applications. That's all from me in terms of curation, so I'll give over to Mark to speak about the more exciting technical architecture side of the ODP. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Danielle. So I'm going to be diving into the technical side of things. And here's a little nugget of wisdom, something I've learned in my years of developing software systems. Architecture is all about perspective, and I'm going to be presenting a few different perspectives on the technical architecture of the ODP in the next few slides. So to begin with, this is a view from one of our main clients, the DFFE. Seon has developed and is continuing to develop the marine information management system for them. So this is the kind of picture I like to present in discussions with our stakeholders, with our clients. It gives quite a tangible picture of how we're going to deploy our systems onto their infrastructure, an idea of the status of deliverables, how their systems will integrate with systems that are deployed on Seon's infrastructure. Then this is a slightly different view, still from a client perspective, but more of an institutional point of view of things. So here we're showing two of our main use cases, the MIMS again, and the Seon Observations Database, which are both clients of the ODP. And in this picture, we see the client as being kind of a set of capabilities and how they might make use of the set of capabilities that are provided by the ODP. In this picture, interestingly, the links here are not so much about system integrations as they are about institutional relationships. And of course, system integrations can only come about once those institutional relationships have been established. If we flip the view around to take a more Seon-centric view of things, we see that the ODP is not actually only about the systems, it's actually a broader picture of the entirety of Seon's research data infrastructure. And in this view, we actually see the ODP as being an interface to Seon's research data infrastructure, so including not just the systems, but also the human capacity, the data curation function, the infrastructure management function, the data science function, as well as things like standard operating procedures and data management policies. So this is the view that we present as Seon's public relations perspective to the wider research community, and this is the perspective also that is understood under our CTS Quartra Seal certification. Now getting more into the technical side of things, this is a view of the entity relationship model of the current production platform. This model has been evolving since 2018 in support of our two main use cases. ODP version 1 launched in 2021, and we've had a number of services running continuously since then, so an OAuth 2 based identity service, metadata publication service, a number of catalog integrations that have come online over time, and an automated integration with the Seon Observations Database for metadata publication. ODP version 2 was launched last year. We did a major overhaul of the tech stack as well as the architecture and introduced a new tagging framework which introduces a lot more dynamism and extensibility to the platform and the curation workflows. And ODP version 3 is currently in development. So some of the key innovations that have taken place in the course of developing this platform, there's this notion of separating metadata archival from metadata distribution based on concepts in the Open Archival Information System model. So the record entity essentially represents the source of truth about a data set, whereas the catalog record, many-to-many relation, it's a distributable record that might be different for different catalogs. Then we've done a lot of work with JSON Schema, not only for metadata validation, but we've developed an extension to JSON Schema, which enables us to translate JSON metadata records from one schema to another. So there's the ISO 19115 standard that Daniel mentioned. We use extensively for marine data sets. It's a geospatial standard which is quite semantically rich in comparison to DataCite. So in order to be able to publish records to DataCite and get those DOI links working, we need to translate to DataCite. So the extension, we embed keywords into the validation schema that uses JSON relative pointers to pick out bits and pieces of the source record, build up a JSON patch to construct the target record, and publish that to DataCite. And we're working on doing the same kind of thing for the EML standard for biological data sets. Then there's also, we've developed a tagging framework. In principle, what tags provide is the ability to extend the capabilities and add new features to the platform without having to change the underlying data model. So each type of tag is associated with a JSON schema, which describes the structure and the semantics of annotations that can be attached to individual metadata records or metadata collections to support things like quality control, keywords, and some tags influence the publication process to decide how or whether records get published to particular catalogs. So the main limitation of the current platform is that there's no system support for file-based archives. We use Nextcloud in a couple of cases, and currently curators still have to accept metadata using spreadsheets or Google Forms and manually create the JSON records using the admin interface. So what we're doing in ODP version 3, there's a lot of work on the go to better support the file archives and take some of the workload off data curators. So by developing a packaging API which supports the submission of metadata, an archive API which supports file uploads, we can develop new user interfaces that makes it more attractive for data producers in South Africa to submit their data to us, whether directly to SAON or to the Marine Information Management System or to the South African Polar Research Infrastructure, which will be hosted by SAON as well. So some more capabilities that are coming out of this work. We can ensure dataset fixity, so checksums are calculated in the client, in the browser at the point of upload, and then the checksum lives with the file for the duration of its lifetime. We'll also support subfolder uploads, batch downloads on the cataloging side, and download usage statistics across the board for reporting purposes. So this is what the information model is looking like in version 3, and we're working towards full implementation of that open archival information system reference model that I mentioned. So the OAIS defines 3 distinct classes of package being data plus metadata, a submission information package, which is now represented by the new package entity in version 3, and an archival information package, which represents your long-term storage of data sets, your source of truth in regards to the metadata, and then the dissemination information package represented by our catalog record. So there's some interesting patterns that have emerged from this architecture. The most significant for me is this kind of multi-way connectivity between data producers on the one hand and data consumers on the other. So what this means is when we develop an integration for a new archival system, these are some of the ones in progress and planned. There's additional automated integrations in the pipeline under the SAPRI project as well. So when these archive integrations come online, they'll automatically have access to all the catalogs that are already integrated on the output side, and vice versa. If we develop an integration for a new cataloging platform out there, and this is generally a relatively straightforward thing to do, then that catalog will automatically have access to all the archives that are already integrated on the input side. Another interesting pattern that's emerging in version 3 development is differentiated access control for metadata properties. So what this means is where in the current platform we've got a record entity, record API, which treats dataset metadata as one single big JSON object that gets validated against a well-known schema. In version 3, we're working with a new package API handling the submission side of things, and the package API treats metadata as a collection of tags. So, for example, we have tags for dataset contributors, for geographical extent, temporal extent, and so on and so forth. So now, because tags can each be associated with their own scope or permission, we can control who can create particular pieces of the metadata. This is quite relevant in the case of DOIs, for example. So in general, SAON will issue DOIs on behalf of data providers, but we're working towards a situation where one of our main clients, the DFFE, in terms of the Marine Information Management System, they will eventually want to be able to issue their own DOIs. So we can do that by assigning the DOI scope to a role associated with the DFFE-based curator, but not to the data providers in general. So that comes to the end of our presentation. Just to wrap up, some of the guiding principles that influence the technical architectural development of the platform. Separation of concerns, it's a foundational principle in computer science, and it's manifested in some of the many-to-many relations that you see in the entity relationship model. So the many-to-many relations, they give us additional degrees of freedom. They allow related entities and the systems and objects that they represent to evolve and scale independently of one another. And then, of course, it's very important to consider multiple different perspectives. This gives us a richer understanding of the use cases and the objectives that we're trying to achieve. I hope you found that interesting. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. You maintained the 20 minutes. Just hold for me. We'll take the questions at the end of the presentations. And